Yeah. Okay. Good morning and good evening, everyone, from whichever time zones that you have joined in. And people who are not talking, if you can go on mute, please. Uh, thank you. So let me share my screen. Uh, will Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, your
Does,
voice is coming little low. Not sure it is only me or for everyone.
is
It
it
is
better now?
breaking for me also.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's comparatively better.
I just
Yeah.
adjusted my mic, so nothing much. Okay. So let me know if it has. Okay, so let's get started. So we'll set the introductions aside. Uh, Most of you would already know me and Niladri, so we'll set the introductions aside. I hope all of you and your family are doing fine. And yeah, whoever is eligible, please do take your vaccines. I did take mine on the 1st of April. So now, please don't calculate my age, but that is not the intent. So please do take your vaccines if you're eligible. Okay, let's get started. Uh, this is what we have completed till now. We've done the overview, the safe core values, lean agile mindset, the safe principles, the dual operating system, the core competencies of business agility. And today I'm covering a spanning palette. So this is where the big picture is. We have completed all of this as well as the core values, lean agile mindset, safe principles. And this is the spanning palette that we are going to talk today. From the big picture point of view, I just want to connect that dots as to what all we have covered. And there's quite a bit of topics to be covered, which we'll do in the due course of time. So this is a spanning palette. So it talks about the various roles and artifacts that you can apply to the specific team, program, or the portfolio, depending upon your context. So, and it contains all the guidelines and elements that can be used in your context. And as you can see, the left one, this one has got three topics or three elements: vision, roadmap, and system team, and which you would see as part of the essential safe. We'll be covering what is essential safe in the next session, and you have got the rest of the ones get added up for the other configurations. Nevertheless, since safe is a framework, depending depending upon your specific context, you can pick and choose. Even if you are in an essential safe, you can pick and choose the other stuff, other topics, other elements also. There's nothing that stops you from doing it. Okay, so let's see one by one. What are all these elements on the spanning palette? To start with is the vision. uh, Vision primarily talks about what is the future state of the solution that is under the development. Under the, when I say development, which is getting built, it talks about the future state of the solution. It primarily talks about what is the customer needs, the stakeholder needs, and
Mahendra, one more thing. Is there any fan or something close by? I think there is some noises coming up.
yeah, there's a cooler running by, so let me
Okay,
just
I
switch it
think,
off then.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, is my I hope it is better now.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
much better now.
thanks. Okay, so vision, it talks about the customer and the stakeholder needs, and what are the features and the capabilities that are proposed to meet those needs. So the vision encompasses all of that, and it is both aspirational and achievable. So in the broader context, so it gives an overview of the purpose of the solution which is under development. Okay. Before I forgot some working agreement. We'll take questions towards the end. In the interest of time and to keep the flow to keep the flow going, so you can note down the slide number and we can come back to that slide as and when if you have got any clarifications towards the end. And who are all not speaking, please be on mute. Okay, carrying on. So there are three types of vision that in the scaled agile framework. The first is a portfolio vision. So it is basically a long-term context setting, and for which will enable the short-term decisions that get taken. So it is both practical as well as inspirational. So you have a long-term vision, and it gives a guidance or a framework to take your short-term decisions. So this is what it means. So that agile teams can make more informed choices about the various functionalities that they pick up or the local decisions that they take. So it has to be in line with the long-term vision. Uh, so in this book, Switch, the authors talk about uh, postcard from the future. What would we want to look at our organization if we get it few years down the line? So it basically answers the couple of questions which is here on the left side. How will the future solution solve the larger customer problems? How can it differentiate us from our competitors? And what is our current business context, and how we have to evolve to meet the future state. So the vision should answer all of these questions, and it should be aspirational as well as achievable. So that is we have to strike that right balance out there, and it should be motivating enough to engage everyone in that journey. So it is just not a beautiful statement written on the wall, and if you're not able to engage everyone in that journey, so it doesn't serve that purpose. So it should be able to engage everyone in that journey. It is basically the business owners or the C-level executives who come up with these visions, and they present this during the PA planning also. PA planning is the program increment planning. So people who are aware of scaled agile framework terminologies will be able to relate to it, and people who are not, so you don't have to worry. So we'll be covering all of this in the subsequent sessions. As of now, you might want to just understand that a program increment is you can equate it to a release, a quarterly release. So quarterly planning. So you can equate it to that for the time being. The second type of vision that SAFe recommends is a solution vision. First, you have the portfolio vision, then you have the solution vision, wherein you're translating from the portfolio vision to a solution vision. So it should roll down. The product and the solution management maps the portfolio vision and comes up to and draw some tangible elements to the solution vision. And it basically answers these questions: what will the new solution do, what are the problems it will solve, and what are the features and the benefits it will have, and for whom it will provide them, and of course on the non-functional requirements also. So on and so forth. So it can answer these questions, and these are the various inputs a solution vision can take from. So you can get inputs from the solution intent, the non-functional requirements, the portfolio and the portfolio vision and the strategic teams. You can get customer feedback and from the team itself, from the product owners, the product management, and the agile teams itself. So all of these, the solution vision draws inputs from all of these various elements. That's how solution vision is formed. Next, coming further down, we have the program vision. Each and every agile release train, what is an agile release train we'll be covering later. For people who already know, would be able to appreciate. For people who are not familiar with the safe terms, don't have to worry. So agile release train is nothing but a huge, is multiple, it's a scrum of scrums. So anywhere between 120 to 120, 50 to 125 member program, you can think of it. It's an agile release train. Every agile release train will have its own vision and a detailed direction of what they are going to achieve. And of course, it will be tightly coupled to the solution vision. So it has to roll up to the solution vision. Uh, and every agile release train will have a specific roadmap. So how do you actually propagate how do you show the make the vision visible through the roadmap? So you have PI. So the depiction here is currently we are in PI 3, so which has got couple of objectives, and the roadmap shows what will come in PI 4 and PI 5. So which is 3 months down the line and probably 6 months down the line. So and these are the specific milestones that are there. Probably there's some an expo there in the PI 4. So this is a forecast. So the roadmap, the vision is depicted by the roadmap. So that is what that's how you convey the vision. The vision is translated for as a consumable to the teams through a roadmap. And in a particular program increment, the business owners define the top 10 features, which is which forms part of the PA objectives for that particular program, for that particular program increment. And the product management constantly updates these features priorities, and WSJF is a technique, weighted shortest job first, is a prioritization technique. They use that technique to prioritize these features. And the advantage here is, or the transparency, the advantage here is, the team won't be surprised by the new list. So they know, at least they have some visibility as to what is coming in the next quarter and the quarter after that. As you can see, this is the we have covered the core values earlier, which is alignment, transparency, built-in quality, and flow. So this is where you see transparency and alignment in play. So there's an alignment to the portfolio vision, the solution vision, and the program vision, and there's transparency. So this is where the core values are also exhibited. So this on the vision part of it. Now let's see the next one about the roadmap. Roadmap is nothing but a set of scheduled events and milestones in the due course of time. So it is a glue to link to the strategy to tactics. So you have a strategy in place, and how do you, and you have a tactics. So roadmap is a go media between the strategy and the tactics. So yes, you have current, near term, and long term deliverables, which realize the portion of the portfolio vision and the strategic themes. So it all is shown in the roadmap. SAFe has got three types of roadmaps. First is the PI roadmap, which has got the near-term commitments, which we just saw, which has got the next 2 to 3 PIs in place for a particular agile release train, or it could be a solution train as well. So for the next 2 to 3 PIs, there's a roadmap. It is not that it is written in stone, but at least some broad perspective, broad overview is there on a course basis for the next 2 to 3 PIs. And you have the solution roadmap, which is a bit of a long term. It could be a multi-year thing. Once again, showing the key milestones. Then you have the portfolio roadmap. Many solutions contribute to a portfolio roadmap. So there are three types of roadmaps: PI roadmap, solution roadmap, and portfolio roadmap. We'll see each one of them in a bit more detail. Before we get into these three roadmaps, let's understand what all factors contribute to defining a roadmap. So one is the market rhythm. So what is a very key aspect to the defining a roadmap. So it's on a, time scale. So for example, if it is a social media, so the value is constant throughout, irrespective of the time of the year. While if you're for a toy maker, so the values are highest towards the last quarter of the year, during the December and the holiday season, wherein the value is very high. So the however, for the toy maker to be supported by the software, he has to be ready somewhere over here. The B2B companies have to be ready over here, so that they can support the Black Friday sales or the year-end holiday season sales. So it's a market rhythm. This is a cyclic rhythm. So in during the first and the second quarter of the year, the toy companies are the value to the customer is on the lower side, while towards the end it is it increases. There's a peak, substantially increment is there. And the other factor which contributes to defining a roadmap could be events. There could be some schedule events. So events could be like some change in regulations, or you have a competitor who's making a release, or you have a technology change. So you have to align your roadmap accordingly. So if there's a regulatory thing coming in, we need to make our changes. Otherwise, we will get penalized. And if there's a competitor release that is happening, we need to align to that. And of course, if there's a technology that has got released, and we need to make changes to our system to align to the new technologies. So there are two aspects to defining a roadmap. One is the market rhythm, and the other can be the market events. Now, uh, this is known as a planning onion. Mike Cohn calls us a planning on an onion. So it basically looks like the onion peels, the onion rings. So you have the daily planning, when they have iteration planning. You have the current plan. Current plan is the current PI, current program increment. So it gives a perspective, or your planning horizon is from 8 to 12 weeks. Then you have the PI roadmap, solution roadmap, and the portfolio roadmap. While solution and portfolio roadmap can be multi-year, while the PI roadmap is the next 2 to 3 PIs. So this is the planning horizon. While from a clarity point of view, there's more, the daily planning and the iteration planning is a bit of a more of a detail, while there's less of detail on the towards the solution and the portfolio horizon. Now, as I said, there are three types of roadmap. One is a portfolio roadmap. There, as I mentioned, there could be multiple solutions contributing to a particular portfolio. So this basically integrates all the solutions and the PA roadmaps and gives a complete big picture on all the various epics and the enablers that each of the value streams are contributing to the entire portfolio. So for the next 4 quarters, how does it look? Then it is half yearly, and then it is yearly. So as you can see, for the next 3 to 4 quarters, for the next immediately it is on the quarterly basis, then it is half yearly, and then it could be yearly. So it was once again depending upon our context as to how we want to break it down. Whether do we want to show for the next 3 quarters, then yearly and half yearly, it's left to our context. The idea is, for the immediate future, we should have a bit more of a clarity, while further down the line, the clarity could be a bit more lesser. That's a whole idea here. Then this shows about the solution roadmap. One of these solutions. So this is a bit of in a bit of a detail. So a particular value stream has its own solution roadmap, and mm, the point to be taken over here is, so the more and more we are committed towards the long term, the it decreases our agility. So we have to strike that balance. So we can't be we cannot achieve business agility if we make it very rigid, if we make our future plans very rigid. So we have to strike that balance out here. So the leaders out, the lean agile leaders do should be able to appreciate and understand that these are just forecasts and can and should be updated. So can and should, depending upon the market situation. So you keep on inspecting and adapting. So as and when your market changes, so you'll have to, you should be flexible enough to change your plan. And this once again falls back to our one of the agile manifestos values, responding to change over having a firm plan. So so it falls back to that agile value as well. Next, we have the PA roadmap. So we spoke about it earlier, and as you can see, for this current PI, so there's something known as committed objectives and the uncommitted objectives. So we'll talk about it in a bit more detail when we talk about what is PI planning and things like that. For the time being, you can just take it as that for the this particular program, they are sure of achieving something, and there are some uncommitted objectives which if they can accomplish, they will. So the business owners need are not expected to keep this into account while making their projections. That is what it says. So this is what has planned for the next for this PI, and how does the next 2 3 PS look like. That is what is the PI roadmap. uh, if you can mute whoever is there a permission?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think that was
thanks.
Sejal. Yeah, you can
Thanks,
continue.
thanks. Okay, moving on to the next element, which is milestones. Once again, SAFe has got three types of milestones: program increment, milestone, fixed date, and learning milestone. We'll see what each one of them is in detail. So this is the PI milestone. So milestone is nothing but uh, uh, solution, the system increment that we need to deliver at regular intervals in incremental value. So at our PI boundary, so it is expected that the all of the Scrum teams which are contributing to that particular solution given integrated system demo, and that's a specific milestone. So it's at the PI boundary. So that is the PI milestone that you would be having. So the set of PI objectives and the product PI vision that is achieved, and that constitutes a milestone at the PI boundary. The next could be of the fixed date milestones, wherein there could be some specific events, trade shows or customer demos, or there could be some specific release dates that are controlled by the external and internal business contexts. And there could be some contractual bindings as well. So due to some contractual bindings, you'll have some milestones. So these are the fixed date milestones. And it could be in a large solution, there could be cases wherein you have software and hardware and all of this integration happening. So to get all of them to work together, so you would have specific dates to abide by. So that's once again one of the fixed date milestones that we would be having. Next is the learning milestones. So this is basically to understand the feasibility of the solution. So we deploy something, and then we take we inspect and adapt. So to understand the feasibility of the solution with the right set of features and the capabilities in that solution. So that's a so how do we go about doing it? So we are testing we could test a concept with a focus group, or we could release a MVP, or apply lean UX and make some assumptions for a MMF, minimum marketable feature. So these are all various examples of learning milestones. And it may not directly fall into the PI boundary, so it could be at any point of the PI boundary, and it is just not confined to only to the team which is developing the product. It could involve the functions which could be the sales, the marketing, operations, finance, everyone. So all of them could be part of the achieving the learning milestone. The next one that we have is shared services. So what are shared services? So these are special roles and or uh, roles and people which will enable the agile release train or the solution train, and they give dedicated time to these trains. So there are specific skill sets. They carry very niche skill sets which is are not available so very freely, and probably they are costly. So they fall under the shared services category. uh, and they're generally very busy, so because the multiple people are gunning for them, so we'll have to plan and engage them uh, on a scheduled basis, so that has to be taken care. And these are the various examples of the shared services that could be there. So right from technical writers to the end user trainings to the desktop support, and even our agile coaches and the system engineering coaches. So so on and so forth. It could be the enterprise architecture team. It could be the infrastructure team, or the tools management. So these are the various niche skill sets. This is just a sample, so it's once again in the context of our organization. You can add to the list. So this is just a sample of what could constitute to be part of the shared services. Moving on to the next one, which is community of practice. So we all know what community of practices is. Most of us who are working in the agile construct, we get to hear this a lot. So it is basically a network of professionals. We get together and share our ideas and build a relationship, and we have a common problem to solve, or we share our experiences so that others can benefit from our learnings. So that is that's what is community of practice. And this drives the motivational aspect of it by giving autonomy, mastery, and purpose apart from the daily run of the mill routine work that we do. So it is the it drives the motivational aspects of the individuals, and they've got something else to look out for apart from their daily routine that they do. What these are types of community of practices that we have. So generally we see the SMCOP, Scrum Master Community of Practice, Scrum Product Owner Community of Practice, or it could be the test engineers, or it could be the system engineers. It could be role based, and it could be topic based as well. So you got a set of individuals who want to share their knowledge on a specific language, or it could be the DevOps guys, or it could be testing practice, ATDD, so acceptance test driven development, or any specific topic that you want to share your experiences and learn as a team. So it could there could be topic based community of practices as well. Now moving on to the next one, which is the system team. So system team is the one which assess. So you got in a PI, in an agile release train, in a program, you got an agile release train is, as I mentioned, 50 to 150 125 people, or 150 at times. So that constitutes around 10 to 15 teams. So each one of these teams are have got their individual deliverables. So this system team is the one which helps in integrating and giving a system demo to the product and the solution management. So this is what is the system team. And please don't get confused with the existing structure wherein you have got a development team, you have a testing team. No, that's not what we are telling over here. Each of the scrum teams are fully functional or cross functional with the necessary skill sets that is there from the development, testing, and all the other functions that is there. Over and above that, since the solution is so very huge, you have a dedicated agile team which is known as a system team, which helps in integrating the deliverables of each of these agile teams. So you'll have to be a bit clear over here. It is not the regular QA team or the testing team that in the erstwhile world that we have. No, that's not what we are telling over here. And they could be maintaining the delivery pipeline, the tool chain, and they have these specific skill sets to maintain. Yeah, and as I mentioned, they perform the end-to-end solution testing. So after they integrate the deliverables of each one of these 10 to 15 teams, and then they give the solution demo, and they help in releasing as well. Over a period of time, yes, the system teams could be eliminated, and the agile release train, they themselves can absorb these skill sets, and they can eliminate the need of a system team. Even that can also happen. While uh, you can look at it like a system team is the one which will build the runway, and the agile release team has the builds a skill set on it, and they take off on that runway. So that is the analogy that I can think of in this context. Okay, what are the responsibilities of the system team? Build the infrastructure, solution integration, do end-to-end testing, give system and the solution demos, release as well. Now, moving on to the lean UX. So UX, as we know, is user experience. It is a user's perception of how the system, how to use the system, how easy it is used, how effective it is. So the UX design uh, uh, focuses on building the systems from the user's needs and wants point of view. So it should be there's no point in building a system which the users struggle to use. If it is not self-intuitive, then there's no point. So the UX designers is a specific skill set which designs these frameworks. Now, the common problem that we face is, on one side, the agile team needs to keep on delivering on a incremental basis, and you need to add value to the product, and you need to be faster to the market. And on the other side, you have the designing team, which have to give you the user user experience elements to it. So on one side, the agile team is expected to churn out, and the other side, you have the design team which has to collaborate and keep the design elements also in place. So that is a general problem that we have. So how do we go about solving it? So that is what we'll see. That's what is the how do we address in the lean UX process that we have, which scale safe recommends. So we do a benefit hypothesis. So what we are telling over here is the agile teams and the UX designers, they accept the fact that there's quite a bit of unknown, and big design upfront doesn't work anymore. So what they do, they create a hypothesis about a feature. Hypothesis, basically you make some assumptions, and you expect some business results, and they implement it, and they test the hypothesis incrementally. So that is what is the concept of benefit hypothesis. Then you get into a collaborative design mode. So traditionally, uh, UX designers are a specific skill set. So now their goal was to have everything pixel perfect. Everything should be really spick and span, and it lot of advance. The design is done in well in advance. While what we recommend over here, the agile teams are empowered to collaboratively do the UX design. So whatever, there could be a broad guidelines that could be there from the central UX team, and the agile teams are empowered to work within those guidelines. So this is uh, uh, this is where you see the principal line in action: decentralized decision making. So whatever can be there's a broad spread of guidelines that is given by the central UX team, and the agile teams can make changes or take decisions on the fly within those guidelines. That is where you see the this principle in play. So this is what I'm trying to tell: the centralized control over certain reusable design assets are there. Now you build the teams build a minimum marketable feature MMF. So you have a hypothesis in place. You do a collaborative design, and the agile teams are empowered to take decisions locally within the construct of the broad guidelines that is given, and they build a solution uh, which serves some functionality. It's known as minimum marketable feature. Uh, uh, it is not about checking about the viability of the product. Here you're able to market, and you are able to generate revenue. That's why it's known as minimum marketable feature. And you put it into you release it, and then you prove your hypothesis. So this once again aligns to the principle number 4, wherein you build incremental with fast learning cycles. So you have a hypothesis, you put it into market, and you prove your hypothesis. That is what is the evaluation that is happening. Now there are various ways that you can evaluate by observation. So you can observe how the users, you can just shadow and observe how the users use these features, or you can do user surveys, and you can have telemetry incorporated in your solution. You can do user analytics, and there could be occasions wherein you have to release two versions of the same product for two different set of users to see how it goes, because at this point of time probably we don't know which would click. So it could so that is A/B testing. So there are various ways and means that you can evaluate your hypothesis. So this is what is the lean UX process. Coming to the last topic on this spanning palette, which is metrics. So I deliberately did not get into the details of this, because a whole list of metrics that are there. So you have matrices at the essential safe. So you've got the regular iteration metrics, and you've got the predictably measures. Some people call it as commitment reliability, and you've got the cumulative flow diagram. So the whole set of matrices are there. So we can quickly mm, probably see the scaled agile framework itself, um, as to what. So, so this is, so they have got the business agility self-assessment. There's a portfolio matrix is and the whole set of matrices are there. So this is a solution trend performance metrics. This is how the feature progress report can be drawn. There's a cumulative flow diagram. This is where is the deployment and the releases you measure that as well. The mean time to recovery. So the whole set of metrics, the iteration, regular iteration matrices that we have, the number of stories planned versus accepted, and uh, the quality metrics with respect to the unit test coverage, defects, so on and so forth. So just an overview of the whole set of matrices that we have. Can't cover all of them. I thought I'll just quickly touch upon it. Well, so this brings us to the end. We got another 14 minutes for any questions which I and Niladri can answer.
All right, I think there were a couple of chats, but none of them are questions.
Mhm.
And
I
in you,
can we can you means can I ask the question now?
Yeah, please, please.
Okay. So there was a statement on one of the slides which says that agility decreases when we freeze program increment or solution increment. I think on that slide.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was trying to understand that because how agility decreases because if we don't freeze the program or portfolio, it impacts the whole chain. Uh, ART, right? So, to what level means that statement holds true, and uh, means what is the flexibility we have, maintaining this agility in terms of solution roadmap, program increment. So, I was a bit confused with that statement particularly.
Good. Very good question. So probably you're referring to this one, which I'm showing on the
Yes.
screen. Yeah. So what we are trying to tell over here is, don't think too very. So it depends on the context also. So let's assume that you're a e-commerce company. So the market is very dynamic. So don't think too very. So don't freeze your plans too much in the future. So maybe for the next 2-3 quarters you can be sure of, but you can't be so very sure of probably after 1 or 2 years. On the contrary, let's assume that you are shipbuilding or an aircraft like Boeing or Airbus. So you're very sure. So it's a multi-year project. So it is not so very fluid as an e-commerce organization. So it's once again the contextual out here. So the point here is, keep your plans flexible enough so that you can adapt to the market changes. So don't make it so very rigid that afterwards, if the market changes, you're not able to maneuver. That is what this is telling. This is once again contextual. So for like as I mentioned, for an e-commerce, maybe for the next 3 to 4 quarters is what we can predict. We don't know what happens after 3-4 years. But for a huge solution like shipping or aircraft, it is a different scenario. Did I answer?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
So
thanks.
what I understand is it depends that where we want to follow the agility. That is what means. Maybe it's contextual and to what level. So that is the right thought which I
Yeah.
am getting.
So it's contextual. So the point here is, don't make it so very rigid that if your market condition, if your competitors or any of these things change, it is don't make it so rigid that you can't change your plan. So that is what it is telling. So it is contextual. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Niladri, you want to add anything, or did I
no,
cover?
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there anyone have any other questions? Anyone from YouTube? You have a question?
Hi
There are.
Niladri, I have put the question in the chat. So here we talked about MMF, right? I just want to know the difference between MVP and MMF.
Okay, I can give it a shot, Niladri. See,
Sure.
MVP is minimum viable product. So going by the word viable, will they, if I release something into the market, will the market be ready to accept this particular new concept. So I'll probably give an example of Paytm. So when Paytm launched, so they had only one particular functionality to probably recharge our prepaid cell phones. So is it really viable? So will the market or the customer base accept using mobiles to do all of these? So you're testing the waters. So you're not putting in so much of, and the idea is not for you to generate revenue. No. While minimum marketable, yes, you should be able to put that functionality and start generating revenue. The other example that I can give is Amazon. When they started selling shoes online, so what they did is they didn't have any infrastructure in place, be it software or neither the store infrastructure in place or the entire supply chain management in place. When they just want to experiment, will people be able to still buy shoes online? Whenever anyone ordered shoes online, literally for that particular shoes, they used to go buy from the market and then fulfill that order. So they were checking that concept. That is minimum viable product. Then you build upon it, and it's minimum marketable feature. So you can generate revenue and fuel back your system.
Right.
Did that answer, or Neeladri, you want to add?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much you have elaborated where we talk about MMF. It's about delivering a value to customer. Where when we are talking about MVP, we are trying to make something learning more about the ultimate product. So MVP could range from single MMF or multiple MMF or without any MMF. So one value MVP can be a combinations of multiple marketable product or single marketable product or no marketable product, even that's creating a viable product for your business.
Hope it
So to
clarified.
understand it
Yeah,
properly,
thank you so
Niladri,
much.
minimum viable product is basically a subset of MMF. Can I call it that way, or it would be a?
It can be, definitely. See, whenever it can be subset or it can be a whole MVP.
See, let us look at this way. So not getting into the jargon or not getting lost in that jargon. MVP is to test the waters. So rather than more, and we don't expect to generate revenue from it. While MMF is, yes, we have tested the water, and it can be marketed and we can generate revenue from it. So you can look at it that way. So if you look at it in that construct, yes, it could be a subset. So at the end of the day, so you just take it at the conceptual level. We want to test the viability of the product, or you want to make the revenue out of it. So you can have a MMF directly, because if you don't have a need to test the market, test your waters. So for example, we all are comfortable using e-commerce. So now that's a well established fact. So we all are comfortable using all the payment, Google Pay and Phone Pay and all the payment for this thing. So you can directly launch. While if there's a new concept out there, I don't know what would that concept be. So we don't know, if we are unsure whether the market would absorb it, then it makes sense to launch a MVP and test the waters first.
Yeah, kind of a you are creating a new app and you want to do a pilot run for one of the region. So that is where you will be evaluating whether it will be suitable for the market or not. That's MVP. Now, once you have got your idea, you are maturing it up based on your learning and creating a marketable feature.
I hope it clarified whoever had.
Yeah, it's fair enough, Mahendra and Niladri. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions anyone have? In whoever is watching from YouTube, do you have any questions? You can type in the YouTube chat window.
Uh, I have one more question regarding system team. So during the PI planning, what is the contribution of the system team?
Yeah, good question. So we'll cover it in a bit more detail. In a nutshell, so in the PA planning, the system team also does their planning. Because they are the people who integrate, like you have each one of the agile teams giving their plan. So you do have the system team also giving their plan, because they are the people who are supposed to be integrating and giving the system demo. I'm looking for that diagram, which is not there. So how do we integrate? When you do the dependency map of all the teams, so you have a key milestone or a key demo, or at the demo happening at the sprint end. So every sprint end, the sprint teams, the individual agile teams give their sprint demo or a iteration sprint review or a iteration review, whatever terminology that you want to use. However, over and above that, you have the system team giving a system demo at the end of every sprint. So they also need to be part of the entire scheme of planning, and they should know how each one of the dependencies between each one, the dependencies between each of the agile teams would enable or hinder them to give the system demo. So uh, they are very much part of the PA planning. Did I answer that?
Yeah, thank you.
And just a small nuance. So for people, looks like you already are familiar with the safe terminologies. So you know that we have a IP iteration or a innovation and planning sprint at the end of the generally the last sprint. Yeah, each PI is generally 8 to 12 weeks. So that amounts to maybe around 4 to 5 sprints. The recommended is you have 4 development sprints, and the 5th is IP sprint. During the IP sprint, the system team is working on, so the other teams, the other agile teams, they are doing innovation and planning. So they are probably doing some innovation items and they're learning and all of that, while the system team is busy integrating the deliverables till now to give the system demo, final product system demo in the IP sprint. Now, when does the system team do innovation? The first sprint of the subsequent PI, they do innovation, because there's nothing to integrate. The system team has already integrated and given in the this PI's IP sprint, and the next PI's first sprint, they don't have anything to integrate. So they do their innovation and innovation activities over there. So just to further add to your question, this is the general doubt that I get. When do system team, if they're busy is doing integration towards in the IP sprint, when do they do innovation? They do innovation in the subsequent sprint, in the first sprint of the next PI. Did it add further clarity to the question that you had?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely, because that was my next question. So you already answered it.
So
Thank you so much.
I'm good in anticipating these questions. Okay.
Thank
Any other
you.
questions, please? We are at 10:30 now. We'll cover all of this in detail when we do the essential safe. We'll cover all of this. Okay. So if there's no other questions,
I
okay.
don't have question, but I just want to check. Yesterday I was going through this website, and for the episode one, the first one, I believe the video which is uploaded was the episode two. So there are two, one and two are duplicates. So probably you can check it once. So
Sure, I'll
I
have
just
it.
wanted.
Where did you check it, in Agile Digest or the
Yeah, yeah.
other? Okay, I'll
Safe
have a look into
learning
that.
train. You have a section of safe learning train, right? So
Right.
I was just going through 1, 2, 3, whatever sessions that happened. I noticed that 1 and 2 are duplicate.
Okay, I'll quickly have a look into that. One will primarily the kickoff, but again, I'll just look into this.
Yeah, you can look at
Yeah,
my channel as well. So the series is there, who are asked this question. So the entire series is here on my channel as well. So if it all that helps, you can just Google for Mahendra Hotte and you can see the series.
thank you.
All right. All right, I think we are good for today. And the next we will be talking about, I think, the essential safe. And this will also will do, I think, on 1st of May.
Yeah, we'll have it on 1st of May. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we wind up, anyone have anything that he wants to talk about? No? All right, great then. Thank you all. Thanks for your time, for taking us in this collaborative session, taking your time to connect with us. And we'll see you once again on our next episodes that where we'll talk about essential safe. Till that time, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you and
Thank
stay
you.
safe. Bye, everyone.